In this chapter, we're going to be covering an introduction to HPC hardware, but I know that we're already on chapter 9, which means that you've been working really hard. So perhaps it's time to start off with a quick meme warm-up. Now before we dive right into hardware components, let's first distinguish the difference between software and hardware, and then look at the relationship between the software and the hardware, since hardware actually can't do anything without the underlying software that manipulates it. Software provides instructions to hardware. It tells the hardware what to do. Just like if you typed a print command in a block of code that you're executing, that will send an instruction to the monitor to display something. Hardware is the physical device that executes the instructions that it receives from the software. An analogy of this would be the software being a cooking recipe book, and the hardware would be the chef that executes instructions from the cooking recipe. Now since we're using Linux, let's talk a bit about the Linux kernel. The Linux kernel is the main component of a Linux operating system, and it acts as the primary interface between a computer's processes and its hardware. The kernel has 4 jobs. Memory management, that is keeping track of how much memory is used to store what and where. And for now, you don't need to worry if you don't actually know what memory is. We're going to dive into that in a later morsel of this chapter. The second is process management. This determines which processes can use which processor or CPU, when and for how long. And we cover software processes in another chapter, but for now think of a software process as an individual computer program. Then there's the device drivers. The kernel acts as a mediator between the hardware and the individual software programs or processes. And finally, system calls and security, but that falls outside of the scope of what we're talking about here. What we're most interested in this chapter is the device driver, since that ties in the relationship between hardware and software. And for that, we'll take a look at Kmod. At a very basic level, Kmod is a component of the Linux operating system, and it loads and unloads device drivers. And a device driver is basically software code that describes how a computer can interact with a particular piece of hardware. And when the software and the hardware are integrated together properly, the result is the computer system experience that we're all familiar with today.